Hi, it's Marcy from Quick Start Piano for Adults, here today to talk about the sustain pedal or the damper pedal, which is why I'm sitting on the floor by my acoustic piano to point out that that right pedal there is what we're talking about. It is called the sustain pedal or the damper pedal, and the reason we call it that is because inside of our piano we have dampers to damp the sound of every single string. If you've ever seen someone playing guitar and they strum the strings and then they damp the sound with their hand so it suddenly stops, that's actually what's going on inside the piano. Every time you hit a note, so you've got this note here, we strike it and then the dampers come down to make the sound so it doesn't ring forever. It's still ringing, but not as much as you would if you left the dampers up in the air, which is what this pedal does. It keeps all the dampers up in the air and lets the sound ring more until you let go of the pedal and then the dampers come down. So a piano technician would have an even more detailed way to describe that. That's good for our purposes. So we're going to talk about how to start using the damper pedal. And I'm going to get up off the floor and adjust my camera a little bit, so you'll have a good view of what's going on here. That should work pretty good. Okay, so with all of my beginners, we actually start using the damper pedal at the very first lesson because it gives such a nice sound. So the difference between this and this is just really different. This is a nice, lush, rich sound, and you can start making that sound at your very first lesson if you use that right damper pedal. So for my beginners, I write the songs and present different songs to them in such a way that you don't have to think very much about the pedal. If it starts to sound too muddy, I say lift the pedal and put it back down. But I don't want my beginners to think an awful lot about it because we don't want to have to juggle too many things at once. So if you're one of my beginners and you're in the beginning book and you're playing Sunrise, the way you would start with that, if it says a C chord, we know the pattern we learned for the C chord, just put the right pedal down. And as long as you're playing those notes, you don't need to change it because they're all the same notes. Now, the next chord coming up is an F chord, and we will want to change it then. So I just lifted it up and put it back down. We're not going to get picky about exactly when to lift it up or put it down at this point. Then back to the C. So if you're roughly copying me and you like the way it sounds when you're changing, that's all you need to do. So we have, if you've been playing that way for a while, the general idea is if you see a different chord, you're going to want to change it. Here I am on Canon in C, Pachelbel's Canon. If I don't change it when we go to G, it starts to get muddy, and I don't change it for A, and suddenly we have a lot of notes layered on top of each other, especially if I'm playing all three of them. Now it's getting really thick. So the general principle, and this general principle works for all music, not just beginner music. If you see a chord change, you're pretty sure you're going to want to change the pedal. So I've got here C, trickier if you're playing melody notes up here, because sometimes we've got all these notes, you play them all together like that. Sometimes it might sound good, sometimes it might not sound good, and you might want to change the pedal a little bit more. If you're working in my back pocket patterns books, the same principle applies where you change it whenever you see a chord change. So I'm looking at page 9 here. Staying on the C, move it to the A. Change. Move it to the F. And back to the G. So you can play that way for quite a while in the beginner's levels. If you're playing, again, if you're playing a song, I'm just making stuff up here. That kind of piece probably sounds better dry. A lot of the pieces from our method book that are note by note might sound better dry without any pedal, but you can always experiment. Try it out and see if you like it or not. So as you're moving on, you're getting more comfortable with the pedal. You might get more sophisticated in how you play it. And I'm going to show you one of the ways that I teach people how to start using overlapping pedal. An overlapping pedal is just a term that refers to pedaling in such a way that you don't have a big gap where nothing is ringing. So I'm going to play it without overlapping pedal, and you can hear what it sounds like. I'm going to go back to Pachelbel's canon. We've got... in sound when I'm changing the chords, and part of that is because my foot and my hands are doing the same motion. They're going up at the same time. And again, if you're just starting out, that is fine. Don't worry about it. But if you're ready to take the next step and try some overlapping pedal, what you're going to do is your hands and your feet will be doing the opposite motion. And so oftentimes I'll tell people to start with your foot down, because when your hands hit the chord, your foot's going to come up, but only for a split second. So now I'm going to hit the G, and the A, and the E. And the general idea is you want your foot only to come up long enough to clear the sound, but you don't want to risk having a gap, so you have it come back down immediately. And I compare it to trying to catch a bug under a cup, if you've ever done that. So you're lifting, let's say you're lying in wait for the bug, and it lands like that. And it's that fast that you want to move. Up, down. Up, I got the bug, now it's back in my cup. Just like that. So I'll demonstrate a little bit more. I'll do some arpeggios, and I'll be changing the pedal when I start the new chord. Gives you a demonstration of a couple of different kinds of pedals. So if I can get back on camera here. I wouldn't be in a big hurry to try overlapping pedal. One of the reasons traditional method books don't introduce pedal by the way at the very beginning is because overlapping pedal is a little bit tricky. And so sometimes you won't even see it until the third book or the fourth book. But I don't want students to wait that long. So feel free to do the simple basic pedaling method just to make things ring. Use it for songs where it sounds nice. And when you get used to that, and only when you're ready, then we can try the overlapping pedal technique. So let me know how it goes. I look forward to hearing from you.